Now I need to jump back to the meeting.
You have one in the waiting room.
And we have one in the waiting room. Yes, let's let them in. Thank you, Julie.
Mhm.
Okay, the meeting is yours, Mr. Magro. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, we're recording too.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call the September 24th Milford Township Planning Commission meeting to order. Will you take the roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Grow. You're there. Kashkarian,
Yes.
Muir, Mazzara,
Here.
Latka,
Here.
DeVry,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Rishka,
Here.
Wynn,
Here.
Brandt,
Here.
Alowski,
Here.
Pizzini,
Here.
and Shri.
Here. Do you want to try my last name?
I do.
No, I'm kidding. She's fine. I'm here.
Next time.
Okay, it looks like we've got a quorum. Do we have a zoning board of appeals liaison report?
Yes, last meeting was September 9th. We had 4 items on the agenda. First was V20-003, location 927 Bishop Street. It's in the R1S zoning district. And the applicants were after a variance to ordinance number 196, section 32-572, accessory buildings and structures. And they wanted to put a small trailer next to their home on the side yard due to health issues with several of the residents that couldn't go upstairs. We asked them for more information and tabled it till the next meeting. Second was V20-005, 1104 Hillside Drive. That's on Moore Lake. It's in the R1 zoning district. Ordinance 196, 32-572, accessory buildings and structures. Due to the small size of the lot, the applicant wished to put a garden shed in the front yard, which faced the road, but their living quarters is on the lake. So for the most part, because of the mailboxes on the roadside, they thought that that was their front yard. Due to the slope of the yard towards the lake, there's no place to put it, and also due to the location of the septic and the well. So we approved that variance. Third was V20-006, 1892 Wixom Trail in the R1S zoning district. Ordinance 196, section 32-584, outdoor vehicle storage in a residential district. Ordinance requires that camping trailers be stored behind the front face of the principal building. The applicant proposed to put a trailer in the front yard of his residential home. Due to the topography of the yard between his house and an adjacent pond, the slope was really not amenable to putting a trailer in his backyard, so we approved that variance. Last was V20-007, 3467 West Buno Road in the R1R zoning district. Ordinance 196, 32-572, accessory buildings and structures. The applicant wished to put a large detached garage in his front yard due to the location of his house at the back of the property and the fact that the structure would be 800 feet off of Buno Road and secluded. We approved that variance as well.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of catch up. Thanks, Neil.
Welcome.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, we'll move on to the township liaison report, Bill.
I do not have a report in my packet or summary of what transpired at the last meeting. So if you could refer to the minutes of the meeting, that would be great.
Okay, I don't have the minutes either, so. All right, let's move on to the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to open public hearing on PV 20-008. It's a land.
George?
Yes,
I'd like to discuss revising the agenda
okay,
before we go into the agenda.
sure.
So in an effort to consolidate time and everybody's interest, I'd like to combine some of the public hearing and right after the public hearing, go into address concerns, whether it's new business or unfinished business. So for example, in terms of the land division variance, like to go through the public hearing, but then immediately go into unfinished business, which would follow that.
New business in this case, yeah.
That's new business, right? And then secondly, take the rezoning request of the C2 planned shopping and move it to item number 2. And then after we discuss that, also go into the discussion on new business. Ultimately, moving the zoning ordinance amendment for the fuel station to item number 3.
Okay,
So that we get the information that's necessary for the residents attending the meeting, and then sort of hold back on the discussion over zoning amendments until after we resolve the first issues.
I think it's a good plan.
So from a legal perspective, Mr. Chairman, I mean, you just have your agenda set up where you do all your public hearings together at the beginning, and then unfinished business and new business. You could do a public hearing and then new business and go back and do another public hearing and new, I mean, you can change that around like he's suggesting. But for your ordinance amendments, each one of those amendments need a public hearing. So you
Yep.
can't consolidate your amendments into like one public hearing. Each of those amendments needs its own public hearing. So you can jump around like that. You can do public hearing, new business, public hearing, new business, but you can't consolidate your public hearings.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. And I think that's where we're headed, because the last thing we're going to do is in the public hearing, it's the public hearing on these zoning ordinance amendment for fuel stations. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I think that's a good idea that Bill's got. I mean, it gets all the, everybody that's online taken care of first. And also if we have to push out or things run late and we need to push off the fuel system or other things to later, that makes that easier to do and doesn't affect as many people.
Good point, Chris. All right, excellent. That's the way we'll proceed through the meeting. Again, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing on PV 20-008. Do I hear a motion?
So
to open?
move.
A second?
Art.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call.
Roll call. Wendy?
McGraw,
Aye.
Kashkarian,
Vaughn, you're,
Oh,
there you go.
Muir, not here. Mazzara,
yes.
Latka,
Aye.
DeVries,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Rishka,
Yes.
Wynn.
Aye.
That's it, right?
Think so.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the public with respect to this land division variance?
Yeah, if I could take that over at this point, Mr. Magro, I'll ask the public if you would like to speak. Please press *9 on your keypad and we will ask you to unmute your line. Again, if you would like to speak on this topic, please press *9. Seeing no hands raised at this time from the public, Mr. Magro?
Okay, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the land division variance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'd like to move down to new business now and have
I
a,
just have one question.
sure, Bill.
On the voting, does it have, are we voting independently or roll call? Jennifer?
On this, since this was just an independent, because there were no comments from the public,
Okay,
just close the public hearing. That's okay. All right. New business, PV 20-008. I'd like to hear, is Kelly's online, isn't she?
She's muted.
Yes,
There
I
we go.
am. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, want to give us a little background on this, Kelly. Some of the information we had was kind of obscure. It was white on black, which was really, really tough to read. And then there were reds and yellows, and it was impossible to figure out exactly what you were trying to do. I think I know what you're trying to do, but maybe you can explain it to all the commissioners and they'll have a firsthand knowledge of what's going on.
Okay, so we are, our primary residence is at 2875 East Commerce. We sit on 10 acres. We purchased a house 3 doors down at 2925 East Commerce. It sits on approximately 7 acres. The property actually connects to our property in the back. The 2 houses in between us sit on 1.5 acres. So our intention was to create 2925 address to be on a 1.5 parcel, just like the 2 in between, and then move the property in the back to our 2875 address.
Okay. Does any of the commissioners have any questions for Kelly?
on the address of 2925, that resulting parcel is how many acres?
In total, it's close to 7. So if we, so we'll basically be moving about 5 acres approximately.
So the parcel left over,
Will be about 1.5 to 1.75, equal to the 2 in between our homes.
and this did go to the land split board. And the land split board cited that it is not compliant to our ordinance in regards to these geometrical lots. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. But it's already, I mean, it's the same shape. We're just reversing it essentially. It's on a L now. And it would just be the opposite L.
Is there a backstory behind what you're trying to do here? I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to take the small 1.5, 1.7 acre lot and separate it from the 5 or 6 acres that's behind it.
Correct.
I think that's probably a good thing, because if you just did that, it would then you'd have 3 conforming parcels.
Right.
What you're doing is you're making a change to a nonconformance to another nonconformance.
So you're actually making the non-conforming lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the issue I think I see here.
How is it worse?
Larger.
It's much
Oh,
larger.
I understand.
Yeah, it's I understand the wisdom of trying to separate the front lot. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And our property towards the back has a horse arena and horse stalls.
Mhm.
So the intention is, longer term, when somebody moves in here that has horses, they're going to want a little more area.
Is there a reason why you wouldn't want to set that back lot out as a separate sidwell? that's adjacent to your property and accessible?
I don't necessarily have any pros or cons that come up to that.
I mean, it would amount to the same thing. The property is still accessible. It just it's still an unconforming property because now she doesn't have road frontage on the back piece. That's, I think, the other issue, isn't it, Bill?
Right. But that, as I recall, that was one of the issues.
Yeah.
So, and also, what is the frontage of it's a little dark here. So the address of the larger resulting parcel is 2875.
Correct.
And what is the road frontage?
Yeah, we can look it up. It's a little, I think where it's over 100.
That's the 1.7 acres over 100.
No, the 10 acres at
Oh, the 10 acres over
2875.
100.
Yeah.
Okay. What we're ending up with here is we're creating we're creating parcels that are going to continue to non-conform. The current parcel exceeds 4:1. The smaller parcel 1.7 exceeds 4:1. The only one that doesn't is one on the back, and it doesn't have road frontage. This is a tough one. I'd like to hear from some of the other commissioners.
Well, if the parcels in the back were joined to the main parcel going, I guess, looking at the piece of paper north and south, what does it become? The issue, what is the issue? A flag lot or what?
It's flag lot, yeah.
Yeah. And today is a flag lot, right?
It creates a bigger flag lot, but yes, you're right. Technically, it's the
It
same.
looks like you're swapping one flag lot, turning it conforming and creating another flag lot. So you still end up with one flag lot and
Right.
one conforming.
Right, and but if you join those two parcels in the back, they're part of the one parcel and it's one flag lot, right?
It's one flag lot, and then, but I understand that they already exist, but we're looking at lots that are way past the 4:1 ratio.
Well, but there's zero now, aren't they? In terms of,
Yeah,
I mean,
the lot that they currently have, the 10-acre parcel is over 4:1, but slightly, it looks like, I don't know.
And
Right.
yeah, we just looked on our paperwork and it's 330 on the road front.
330 on the road front.
Your
Probably
typical
about
10-acre
12.
parcel, the typical 10-acre parcel is about 150 feet. So if you look at that typical parcel running across there, you'll see that, that frontage on address 2875 is much larger. When you take the back part and combine it to the larger parcel, that allows for a much larger development to go in there. Granted, anybody can do anything at some time, but right now I think we're taking basically a non-conforming lot and making it more non-conforming. It's not a flag lot now. It's a lot that exceeds the ratio, but it's probably been there pre-ordinance.
Yep.
Because that 4:1 ratio didn't come out until we really got into more lot averaging type issues. So you have a conforming lot, the way it is right now. Granted, if it's ever split, it would have to conform to the new ordinance, but by adding the back parcel to it, makes that area even more developable into individual 1.5 acre lots.
with and there would have to be a road to go in to do that, right?
There would have to be a road and a cul-de-sac that would provide for the development of those land areas, providing each individual lot met the ordinance.
Yeah. So it really couldn't be developed without a road.
Well, it could be that.
Whereas the flag lot can't be, probably, because I don't have enough information here, the width on the flag lot probably prevents the flag lot from being developed because of the width has to be 150 for the front parcel and still allow enough for a private road to go through. We
Right.
just had this same situation, similar situation a couple of months ago, where the applicant was trying to divide off their property, attach it to, I believe, their parents' property.
Right.
Great. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
I see what you're saying, Bill. I think if you had to have a non-conforming situation, the two larger parcels being a non-conforming would be the better choice, because at least then it's developable. That was what you were getting at, isn't it?
I'm just saying that you have one rectangular lot that conforms to the ordinance that's stated by the land split board.
Mhm.
And we're taking that conforming lot in terms of geometrically symmetrical and making it non-symmetrical. So we have a problem on one lot with it being non-symmetrical. And all we're gonna do is flip it over to the other lot and make it non-symmetrical. So
Right.
why are we doing that? The
Yeah.
township ends up with the same situation.
Yeah, I go back to the fact that if that back lot, I just can't do that. You can't separate that back lot, that 5-acre back lot off, because it doesn't have road frontage.
Nope.
If you go to develop it, if you want to develop it right now and wanted to do that, then you can run a road down there, put a cul-de-sac in, everybody had road frontage, everybody'd be happy.
Yes.
If that was what they did right now, but to just separate it off, even if you did a separate sidwell, you still got a landlocked piece of property.
I mean, it could
Kelly, is
have,
your-
it could
is your-
have road frontage from our 2875 property. I mean, it does now.
So the 1.7 acre or the 10 acre,
The 5 acres.
the 5 acres. The 5 acres has road frontage with the 1.7 acre piece is the
Yes,
road frontage.
yeah.
But if you want to separate that off, you end up landlocking the 5 acres and back. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's a separate sidwell. If it's not a separate sidwell, then it becomes a flag lot, which is exacerbating the nonconformity. Creating a new nonconformity against today's regulations.
I think there is a solution if you, that would fix it to Milford ordinance. And that would be to split off that 1.7, create a new sidwell for the back part, and then also on that 10 acre, split that into 2 sections. So now you have essentially your 3 lots there, and then run a road back with a cul-de-sac to service the back 2 parcels.
I'm not sure that at this point in time, the request in front of us is not to help redevelop the property. There's many ways to redevelop the property if that's the overall intent.
Yep.
Right now, the request is to take a look at what the land split board said and decide whether we uphold it or we don't.
Can I ask a question? I noted that the land division's decision was entirely based upon the creation of a non-symmetrical lot. Is this, but you keep mentioning that it's landlocking the parcel, and I'm not following along with the schematics that were provided, but would this potential split create a landlocked parcel?
Yes, it would.
Okay, that could have been cited by the land division board. That's a reason for not granting land division as well.
The land division board didn't want to do it because it created a large flag lot.
Right, but all the elements for why you should deny should be listed, and that should be one of them.
Well,
So I don't know why that didn't get listed, but my only direction is going to be, and I think Bill's getting at this a little bit, you need to be consistent in your decisions with your appeals. So if you had a prior applicant with the same scenario, you just need to, I'm going to caution you to be consistent.
I agree with you, Jennifer, and that's where I keep coming back to, is the fact that we've got a nonconformity, and we would create a larger one, and I just don't see how we can do it without some other interesting things going on. That's not our choice. Our choice is to talk about what's being requested, and what's being requested is it's not going to work.
I think the applicant could come back with a different suggestion, but I do agree that you're creating a non-conforming, and we've done this in the past where we've had to deny non-conforming creations. As stands, what the applicant is asking for is to create yet another non-conformance. But the issue is that, the applicant could come back with a different suggestion later.
Come back with a different solution. Yep.
So wait a minute, let me ask a question. You guys want me to?
Which may not be through the land split board. So with that, I would make a motion to deny PV 20008L-16-01-426-011 land division request based on the findings of the land split board.
Well, let me ask a question. Can't I put a road in right next to my house? I mean, if that's what you're asking, I need to.
The thing is
be able
that
to get
it's
back
not,
there.
it's not about what you can do. I mean, you can.
We have a motion. Can we have a second?
We have a
and
motion.
discussion?
Exactly. We have a
Okay.
motion. We have a motion to rule on what you've asked us to do currently. If you want to change that later, that's different.
Well, yeah, I don't want to do that. I was just saying that it can be done later down the road if somebody wanted to.
But for right now, what you're asking us to do, we have a motion that's recommending we go with the land split board and agree with them and deny it. That's the motion that's on the board, on the floor right now. And we have a motion, and I need a second.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Again, the applicant can come up with another solution and come back to us. We're not, but for this request, we're agreeing with the board. So, but we appreciate your patience, and thank you. Okay. I'd like to move back up to public hearing, and I will entertain a motion to open the hearing on SP 20-5001. Do I hear a motion?
I so move that we open SP 20-05001.
Public hearing. And I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have an open public hearing on the crossings of Milford. I would take comments from the public at this time.
Yeah, if I could, any of the people that are online that would like to speak, please press star 9 on your keypad, and that will alert us that that you would like to speak. Again, you need to press star 9 on your keypad. I'm going to just bring down this the screen sharing for just a moment, if we could, Shri.
Sure.
Shri, if you could, we want to have you not share just yet. Thank you. Again,
the button.
no problem. We do have a hand raised at this time, Mr. Chair. The
Okay.
phone number of 7696, last 4 digits. We will go ahead and call on you. Please press *6 on your keypad and please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, my name is Sharon Barnes. Is this the time that we're supposed to talk about what we feel about this building thing going on, or is that later?
This is the time.
Okay, so I just became aware of this actually 3 days ago. I live off of South Hill, so I am constantly going up and down Pontiac Trail and turning left onto South Hill. And the amount of traffic that we've been seeing through various times of the day, where I'm coming from Milford and Pontiac Trail, headed east to South Hill, and the line of traffic is bumper to bumper beyond South Hill, that the traffic has to actually stop and separate to allow me to turn left, just to even go to my house. So when I'm reading that they plan on putting 195 housing units in this area, along with a gas station, I don't know why we need another gas station. We've got 2 more right down the road, and multiple stores. I don't understand how this area, being so congested, can handle that area. I live in Milford. I work in Milford at the GM Proving Ground, and I am nowhere near in support of changing this zoning and adding more housing when you can't even deal with the cars and the volume that you guys already have now. Just even getting in and around through downtown, now that you've got the apartments, or now that they've got them down in the village, the traffic has gotten ridiculous. And it's only going to get worse.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We recorded them, so.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
we have the address for the record, please.
Yes, it's 3230 Red Fox Lane, which is off of South Hill.
okay.
George,
All
it
right.
may be necessary to talk to the audience about, this is a discussion, for a plan unit development, which is, all part of the pre-application conference. So we're gathering information at this point.
Yes. And I think it's really important. Thanks, Bill. I think it's really important to understand that this discussion, this public hearing, is strictly about changing this from C2 to a PUD, but it is in very, very early discussion stages, and it's a discussion only. And it's just a part of the pre-application conference that includes us, the attorneys, and our consultants. So this is very, very early on, but we do appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chair, we do have another person with their hand raised.
Can I
Okay,
just interject for 1 minute? I'm sorry. It is my understanding that you already completed your pre-application portion of this processing. This is your public hearing on the rezoning and your consideration of the site plan. And finalization of that might not be this evening, but I just wanted to correct procedurally, you're past the pre-application stage. You're not in the middle of pre-application, you're past that. This is your public hearing.
I'm confused about that, to be honest with you, Jennifer, because this is the first time that the Planning Commission has seen this information in our package. And there have been no discussions on it with the Planning Commission. I don't know if they've talked to you. It sounds like they have.
Yeah,
and they
because
may
I
have
was a
talked-
little confused too. So I
Okay. Let's,
I was a
why
little
don't-
confused
Me
too, so I
too.
asked for clarification. And I
maybe
don't
it'd be
know.
good if we, maybe it'd be good if we just went on with the public hearing.
Well, I just wanted to address that because statements are being made that we're in the pre-application portion and we're not. So I clarified that you've
Oh.
already completed that. So
Okay.
I don't know what communications have gone on between the administration and the planning commission and why that's not being conveyed. But my understanding from speaking with the consultants is that we're past the pre-application stage. And I just got brought into this. So I'm trying to play catch up here, but that's my understanding. And so when you're saying to the public that we're in pre-application, I just don't want them to be, misunderstanding where we are, because we're at the public hearing stage, which is not part of pre-application. That's beyond pre-application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we do have another caller that has their hand raised. Before I get to you, caller, again, to any of the callers on the line, if you would like to speak, please press star 9 on your keypad.
Well,
Caller with the last four
Keep it to
digits.
3 minutes.
Okay. Caller with the last four digits of 3025. We will ask you to unmute your line. Please press star 6 to unmute. Please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, hi. Yep, hi.
No,
My name
no,
is David.
not, I'm sorry, wrong person. We have a caller here. Last four digits are 3025. Oh,
Ken, there's two of them like that.
there's two of them. That's crazy. Sorry about that, caller. There's a little bit of a thing going on here. Go ahead, caller.
Is it me? 3025 or?
Yes. There is there's two 3025s on the line. One of them is, they're different numbers, but the last four digits are the same.
Wow.
So go ahead, caller.
Excuse me, my name and address stated or?
Yes, please.
Okay, my name is Edward Ricketts. I'm off of 924 Abbey Lane. As the previous resident has stated with the traffic, it is definitely significantly high in that area. That's also one reason why I noticed Milford has that, all the potential residential area zone is R1R for I believe it's like a minimum of a 2-acre property to reduce traffic if there is further developments. From my understanding, reading it, that the reason why they want to change it is so they can implement more housing in a smaller area, and they're just using like a commercial spot to put just the housing, and then they'll throw the commercial buildings in there. That's why they want to have it. From my understanding, that's why they want to have it rezoned.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's just honestly, when after seeing everything developing in that area, I honestly think it will increase tons of traffic. And I noticed that they stated that they would extend out the turn lane off of Pontiac Trail, but extending that turn lane is not going to alleviate much traffic because it's already, the amount of traffic is already heavily increased. And as that lady was stating, all the traffic coming down from South Hill to get to 96 is just going to be even higher because you're going to have people from what it looked like, they're going to have a road coming off of Pontiac Trail for, I believe, the apartments or the multifamily housing that they're putting in there. So you have 190, I think it was 95 total dwellings with multiple people coming and going. The traffic's going to be substantial during rush hour times, especially, when school's in session and everything.
Okay, thank you very much. We need to Ken, we need to try to get people to say, I agree with the last person that was on the line rather than restating it. We know there might be an issue with traffic, and so we don't want to keep restating that.
Sure.
Okay,
I'm sure we could make that announcement. Okay, so we're set with this caller. I just wanted to go back to call the other caller. The last 5 digits, let's use 5 digits, 33025, because it sounded like they did have a comment. Caller, if you still have a comment and would like to speak, please press star 6 on your keypad, and that will unmute your line. And please state your name and address for the record, caller. And again, we're looking for new topics or new items at this point.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for taking my call. My name's David Thompson. My address, and I'm a Milford Township resident at 2797 Wildermere Drive, Milford, Michigan. First off, I just want to thank the Planning Commission for the continued commitment to the Milford Community Master Plan. Really, my concern is any deviation towards this has really overwhelmingly community support of this plan, and I'm concerned of any changes to it for all the reasons stated by the past callers, and then just the quaintness of the community being impacted.
Okay, thank you very much.
And one
more.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say one last opportunity. If anyone would like to speak, please press star 9 on your keypad.
Ken, you have some more in the waiting room too.
Okay. Let's let them get settled here. Again, to any of the callers that are on the line, if you would like to speak, please press star 9 on your keypad. Okay, caller with the last 4 digits of 3493. We will ask you to unmute your line and then please state your name and address for the record. Press star 6 to unmute and go ahead and proceed, caller.
Hi, my name is Beth Markel. I live at 650 Olivia Drive in the north side of the township. I guess one of the concerns I'd like to address is just within the zoning of the PUD is that, you know, once this is potentially rezoned, I know that there's a lot of latitude within that zoning. So what assurance will we have from the developer that what they're putting forward now is the plan that they'll stick to? I say this because other townships I know, once they've rezoned to a PUD, have been burned by plans being changed and the township not, and the residents not liking what the builder or developer has changed it to. And at that point, there's no recourse and they're stuck with what they have. So I just kind of want to look forward to that and just have that be a consideration, and what assurances will we have and what legal steps will we make sure are written into contracts in terms of what is part of this PUD and what specifically is not.
You want to address that, Bill?
Pardon?
I don't know if there needs to be a response. We'll probably be responding to it when we get into the discussion, but appreciate what you're saying, and we'll keep our eye on the ball.
Thank you.
And we have another caller. Yes. Caller with the last 4 digits of 3353. We will ask you to unmute your line. Please state your name and address for the record. And again, caller, we're looking for new topics. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, yes. My name is Jennifer King, and I live at 1603 East Maple Road. And I would like to say that I agree with all of the people who have spoken ahead of me. And I would also like to say that I'm really concerned about the beauty of the area and the township staying as a country, rural looking area. And I feel like adding all of those residential area condominiums would really take away from the beauty, not only that and the traffic and the 3-acre property limit that we have on the master plan. So I'd really like to stick with the master plan. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more there, Kim?
Seeing no new callers, we do have a computer. Unfortunately, we do not allow computers into the meeting at this point. The computer name is Jennifer King. We're not sure if that's really a Jennifer King or a Zoom bomber. Are we expecting a Jennifer King?
Ken, that was the last caller.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I see no hands raised at this time.
Okay, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on SP 20-5001.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. I would now like to move back down to a new business, and I would like to discuss the rezoning request for the crossings of Milford. I'd like to hear from the commissioners at this time.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can I give you a brief summary?
Sure, that'd be great.
Let me share my screen.
Can I just clarify something, Shri?
Yes, please.
So the way that it's written on the agenda, and this might just be a typographical error, is site plan review and rezoning request. And so are you considering both of those under one new business item?
No, I think they're just doing a concept plan at this time. I don't think the site plan is, the plan was reviewed.
Okay.
Site plan.
So it's just a typo.
Yes, Sri. This is John Curry.
Hi, John.
Yes, the submittal was for PUD and site plan. That was.
Oh, it was a site plan submitted.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we considering right now site plan approval and PUD rezoning? I mean, we should separate those out under new business items if we are. They're listed as one new business item, but is that the intention this
I think
evening?
at this point, where we are today, is that we first need to talk about the concept with the planning commission and the public before we move into a site plan approval mode.
Right, but you're already there, Bill, on the agenda, and you've already announced through a public hearing. So I get that you should talk about the concept here, and you will. But technically, legally, you're in a site plan review and a public hearing for a rezoning right now. So you can't change that. You're here. But you can talk about all those details, and that doesn't necessarily mean you need to make any final decisions or recommendations this evening. If you feel you're too far away from doing that, then certainly talk about all of those issues. But I just want to clarify, legally, formally, you're here for site plan review and rezoning requests. And again, I'm catching up here. I don't know how you got to this point. It sounds like there's a lot of confusion with preliminary review and pre-application conference, but you're here now.
Okay, I'm prepared to go through it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
we want to let Siri take us through this.
Does that mean, excuse me, does that mean that at this stage, a formal approval or reject has to be made?
No, it could be made though, but it doesn't have to be made. But you could, because technically you're having your public hearing for rezoning and you're having your site plan review this evening. That's how it was published. That's how it was noticed. So you are doing that this evening. So potentially, if you want to do that, you can, but that doesn't mean you have to.
That the applicant could also be asked to return at a later date with all of the information necessary for us to decide.
Absolutely.
Which we'll get to. So why don't we go through the concept first? And now that that's all been said, there's already been a pre-application conference. We could talk about that later, Jennifer. Not sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think a part of the confusion is because this all happened right when the lockdown happened. And, you know, everybody were trying to process with the closing and opening of the offices and the distribution and all that too. I'm guessing.
There's many lines of communication that could have still transpired during that time frame.
So we all know that the site is located at the northeast corner of Milford and Pontiac. It is currently zoned C2, planned shopping center, and it is surrounded by residential uses to the north and the east, and retail uses to the south and the west across Milford and Pontiac. There are, the site is about 35.8 acres. It is undeveloped at this moment with some regulated wetlands towards the northeast corner and some south center portion of the site. The majority of the site is cleared, even though it appears most of the trees on the edge of the site have grown probably in the last 20 years. So the applicant is utilizing the option where you can ask for a PUD, a mixed-use development, by rezoning the site from C2 to a PUD. He is proposing 5 commercial buildings that total up to 33,000 square feet and 21 buildings, of which 20 are residential units and 1 is a clubhouse. And the total number of units are 195. And from what I understand from the market study, that the residential units are rental, not for sale. And the commercial users, they don't have end users at this time. So they're not spec buildings. So they're going to build to suit as they find the users. The landscape plan shows a retaining wall. If you can see the mouse on the screen, a retaining wall along edge of the parking lot that divides the commercial spaces from the residential uses over there. And they're proposing 3 curb cuts along Milford Road, 2 along Milford and 1 along Pontiac Trail to access the development. And the residential development is proposed to be gated. And they're proposing the retention basins to the south and to the east. The submittal package included elevations for all the residential units, but none are proposed for the commercial buildings because, as I said, they don't have an end user or a type of use in mind. So it is kind of unknown whether who's going to design the commercial buildings or if the quality of architecture is going to match the beautiful buildings that are being proposed at this time. So the review details a lot on the relief they're seeking as part of the PUD application, but I've put together some pointers for discussion for Planning Commission that can be probably considered as part of your deliberation. One, we've seen some variations of the concept plan for the commercial in the traffic study and then in the market analysis that shows 6 buildings in one and a couple of different uses. There was a mix of uses such as a gas station, a drive-through, a bank with a drive-in, and some retail uses. So it's not, we don't know yet what the uses are going to be. And I think it is something that can be discussed as whether those users would be compatible with the residential users that are also being proposed as part of the development. The other thing is phasing is unclear. We don't know if all of the residential development is going to be built in one phase or if they're going to be phased based on market demand. And we don't know the timing for commercial completion of commercial construction as well. So those are the items we can also discuss. Talk about, the impacts of the construction traffic for commercial construction, or the length of the time. And the development also proposes a triangular central open space, which is labeled as park on the plans. At this moment, it is just designed as a landscape space with a couple of trees. The Planning Commission can consider if those amenities are sufficient for the development or if other amenities such as, pathways or play structures or benches are needed for the residents' use. And as I mentioned, the commercial may not happen at the time of the residential uses. So maybe we can also discuss the timing of installation of the sidewalk, the curb cuts, and the landscape along Milford and Pontiac Road. Whether they should be completed along at the first phase of residential or what the timing of those would be. And the other item that the Planning Commission could consider is whether the screening between the proposed commercial space and the proposed residential space, is that sufficient? The red line on the screen is where the screen wall is being proposed. I'll defer to the applicant about the details for the screen wall. I'm not sure if it's a brick wall or how tall the wall is going to be and whether the commercial buildings sit below grade or above grade compared to the residential uses. So the PUD allows the Planning Commission to allow some relief as part of the standard requirements that are listed in the zoning ordinance, where a plan results that conformity with such standards serves no good public purpose. Am I being fast, or are you able to follow me okay? Yes. So these are the items, the standards the applicant is seeking relief from. The first one, the obvious one, is they're seeking a rezoning from C2 to C2 PUD. And a minimum of 100,000 square feet of commercial space is required. They're only proposing 33,000 square feet. A minimum of 50 feet setback is required for buildings from the property lines. Building 12 is set back by 43.9 feet. And a minimum of 50 feet setback is required for parking, and the applicant is proposing 45 along Milford. And the screening opacity, the ordinance requires that the buffer consist of combination of shrubs and evergreen trees or berms. The plan proposes a majority of deciduous trees, so the opacity during winter may not be compliant. So the screening from adjacent uses, let me go back to the landscape plan. They're expected to screen, meet the ordinance requirements for screening along the northern property boundary and the eastern property boundary. And as you can see from the plan, they are proposing new landscape for a partial distance. And the remaining distance that is indicated on the plan, they're seeking a relief because the existing vegetation might meet the standards. So the Planning Commission need to make a determination whether that complies with the requirements and whether a relief can be provided. With that, I think if you have any questions, I'm here. I have all the documents open. So let me know if you have any other questions for me. Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. In terms of, since this is a site plan review, the landscaping that's along the northern edge for 629 feet ceases to exist for the other 624 feet. Does the landscaping within the 629 feet comply with our ordinance for landscaping between the multifamily and residential?
It appears to comply. I do want to, I'm glad you brought that up. I do have a quick follow-up comment on that one. When I looked at the plans, I was under the impression it's a conceptual plan because the commercial part could change. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. If maybe I defer to Jennifer on this item. If the Planning Commission approves the plan as shown with the parking layout and all, and then if they find a user which may require a different parking layout, would that be addressed administratively as long as it meets the requirements?
I can answer that. Okay. The ordinance calls for any major change to a PUD to start the planning process over again, and administratively is only going to handle small things. I think we just had one resident express concern that what is promised sometimes isn't delivered in PUDs.
Right.
Which in the past has been a traditional way. You know, in the recent past, things have gotten better. But if there's a change, then I'll have to go and start the process over again.
That was my understanding.
Pardon?
Sri, can I address that one? When we talk, we'll go over some of these questions, but if I can address that one.
Okay.
Sure. So the intent, and I think it's even noted in the narrative, that each commercial parcel would have to come back before the Planning Commission through the site plan process. As they're conceptual and they don't have tenants signed up yet, we, as you said, we don't know what they'll be. And each one would have to come through individually as a site plan on its own before the Planning Commission.
But the way the ordinance was written, that's the reason why I was a little confused in the beginning when you said it is a site plan as well, because the way the ordinance is written, and as Commissioner Mazzara just stated, the expectation is that the development should happen according to the concept plan that is associated with the approval. So if you're changing the parking layout, then you're differing, I mean, you're deviating from the approved concept plan. So if you're not sure, I think what he meant is if the layout changes, then you'd have to start the PUD process again because you're amending the concept plan.
Well, you should
I
be
don't
able
have
to
the
have,
whole ordinance in front of me right now, but if you take a look at 32-7, it's 32-700. 32-710. You'll find in the ordinance, I think it states similar to what I just said, is that if there is a change that, and to a major extent, then it has to go start the planning process over again.
Right. So that is something that needs to be considered. I think before even the site plan, the uses need to be considered as well, because some of the concept plan were showing multiple drive-ins and drive-throughs.
This sort of leads into the traffic study plan. So the uses stated in the traffic study plan that was done by Rowe differs from the site plan. So they're not the same. That was pointed out by Hubble, Roth, and Clark in their review. I spoke with Hubble, Roth, and Clark today, and they have not yet received a response to their review.
That is correct. I was just looking at their review letter in which they made some comments where they were asking for some clarity in the recommendations. If the addition of the tapers for proposed driveways is just warranted or recommended, and they've asked for some reasoning and some updated calculations in their last review.
And their last review date was March 30th, 2020.
Yes.
can I mention, we just got that letter about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
The
It's
traffic.
dated March, but we only just received it.
So I spoke with Chris today. He hasn't received any comments. So I understand the process, but we're being asked right now to maybe establish some additional information that we're going to need in order to move this forward.
We completely understand.
Because as you heard from the residents, traffic is a major concern.
Yes.
This site had another PUD already approved for it several years ago. Granted, the uses are much different, but I need definite more traffic information to be reviewed and approved by HRC as to whether what the applicant is asking to provide effectively, meets the need of the citizens in terms of traffic congestion.
Yes,
That
we understand.
HRC report also states to include the Pulte development on the other side of the street in the understanding of what that traffic demand could be. I don't think I know that they did not receive that either. But this was discussed, this must have been discussed in your preliminary conference.
Our preliminary conference was in March of 2018. I don't know how far along the residential across the road was at that time. But I think in our response letter to the letter dated May that we received a couple weeks ago, we stated that we're now working with that developer for a coordinated traffic study for both developments.
That'd be
That's in
great.
process.
Yes.
And we understand that this is going to be very much an informational meeting.
Okay.
And we understand that is something that is in the works right now, coordinating with that developer on a coordinated effort on traffic, because they had the same comments as well early on. Their report didn't include ours. Our report didn't include theirs. We're joined together now and working on that as one whole.
And is this part of the preliminary review or is this part of the conference? I'm confused. The conference has ended in 18. In 18?
I believe that is when we had a pre-application conference initially. We
And
submitted plans at the
none of this
beginning of this.
documentation even remotely goes back to that date. So all of this
Pardon?
information that's in my packet today happened after the pre-conference. You said 18.
Yes.
Okay, just trying to get it straight in my mind.
Yeah, so I want to say it was March or April of 18. We submitted for site plan approval under the C2 zoning in the beginning of January of this year. Following discussion with the township and a review by the planner, engineer, fire, and police. Came back in under PUD because of the items that Sri mentioned. The biggest one being the square footage of retail or commercial. The 100,000 square feet. That was the biggest difference that required the PUD.
Wasn't there some discussion over the amount of residential also?
Yeah, yes, we might have even had a little more at the pre-application meeting.
If I may,
So the pre-application meeting was done for a different proposal than what's in front of us tonight.
It was a
Commissioner,
concept plan that this was based on.
It was a different proposal than what's in front of us tonight. You went to the pre-discussion meeting intending to comply to the C2 zoning restriction for a planned shopping center.
That was the direction we had at that time and what we were originally submitted under in January. Following the review by, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sri.
oh, I just wanted to add some clarity, little bit of clarity. I was looking at the last two review letters. The one was sent to you in February and the other one was dated May, but then I understand the timing was a little off. Commissioner Mazzara is also right in the sense the first review you've submitted is as a site plan. And then we recommended that this is not ready to be reviewed as a site plan because you need to rezone the property to PUD first and then come back for site plan. So the review letter that was put together for a PUD concept plan because the plan is the process, the way the process work with Milford is you get your PUD concept plan approved and then you go back and start the site plan process because at that point we would get into much detail about compliance with the landscape standards and the lighting standards, most of it with an assumption you didn't seek relief for them.
Yes. So
Right.
on
The concept plan approval and the site plan are typically not combined.
Your March 4th review was for a site plan review and a determination. That was published. Your review was published March 4th, 2020.
Yes.
And right?
Right. I think Joe Tangari reviewed that one, but I reviewed that one after I started Giffords on March 16th.
So then I'm still confused as to the preliminary conference took place in 18 at the time in which a site plan review was much different than the PUD in front of us. So when did the preliminary conference take place for the PUD we're reviewing tonight?
I don't have answer for that at the moment. I can follow up on that one.
Well, maybe that's just one piece of the information that we could follow up with.
We can. I think at the moment, if you wish, we can get a list of your concerns, and we can go back and discuss with the applicant to make sure that they come back with a complete application, if that's okay with John.
May I say something? This is Adriano with the Crossings.
Sure.
May I say something? Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm not at the office, so I don't have my file here with me in regards to when the pre-application meeting occurred, but I believe that occurred sometime in 19. And the only difference between that original pre-application plan that we proposed was higher density on the multifamily. Since then, as we've moved forward, and as PEA has moved forward with some more detailed engineering, he's tightened the plan up, which has hence reduced the density on the multifamily. But the original pre-application concept plan and what you have before you this evening are very similar, other than the density on the multifamily. Is that correct, John?
Yes. I think someone mentioned there were 6 commercial lots
Yeah,
at one time. I think that's correct. And as we laid it
Right.
out, we.
Yeah, at one point there was, yeah, because we did do several different designs. So yes, we actually dropped one commercial pad. You're correct.
If
So-
I can add to that, that is correct. I mean, you're proposing the same mix of uses. The thing that changed along the process is how you should approach it. What is the review and approval process that is fit for what you're trying to propose? Does it make sense? Like the first plan also showed a mix of commercial and residential uses, but we said, this is not a site plan, you need to do a PUD, rezone it first.
Correct. That's why we submitted under the C2, because that's what we were told to do. And then we were asked to resubmit
Right.
and ask for a rezoning and go via PUD. So we're only doing what we're being told.
Sure, I understand that.
But our concept plan has not changed significantly. If anything, we lost the commercial pad and the residential density has gone down. The layout is virtually identical as to what you are looking at this evening.
I think I understand what you're saying, but I think the information that we have in front of us has to be updated and accurate to today. So.
That is accurate, what is before you this evening.
So if it is accurate as to what we received this evening, if you'll turn to your traffic study.
Right.
By row.
Okay.
I don't know if you have it right there.
No, I don't.
If you read the description on the scope, what is indicated on the scope, just hold on 1 minute, because I don't want to confuse all my paperwork here.
Can you give me the page number? I can put it up on the screen.
I would love to give you a page number, but unfortunately, the information that I have is not paginated. So if you take a look at the study by row, the impact study, under the very first statement, professional services have been completed on the traffic impact assessment related to, hold on 1 minute, please.
Yeah,
So the services have been completed a traffic impact assessment related to the development. The current plan includes the 195 housing units, a bank at 5,000 square feet, fast food restaurant with a drive-through at 4,500 square feet, gas station convenient with 12 pumps at 5,500, a sit-down restaurant at 45 stores at 5,000, and a fast food restaurant with no drive-through, 2,500. And if you compare that to your site plan, that doesn't seem to match for me.
Well, we don't know what exact end users are going to ultimately end up on the small 5 commercial pads that are there. But this is sort of our thought process on what we think there's a market for there. And I think we did in fact have a commercial market study done that supports this type of use for the commercial pads. And it's you know, is our intention that the end user come back before Milford Township and go through the entire planning commission approval process, engineering, et cetera, architectural, landscaping, before they're able to start construction on that commercial pad.
But that change in uses may change a traffic analysis done by a traffic engineer takes a use and applies to that use a understanding of what the traffic count would be. Number of visits per day depends on what it is. A bank may have more different number of trips per day than a gas station. So a gas station with 2 pumps may be different than a gas station with 12 pumps. So in order to get an accurate, and this is what Hubble, Roth, and Clark has asked for, and he hasn't received it yet. So we need.
Bill,
to-
as I stated, we just received that letter 2 weeks ago. I understand it's dated
Okay.
March, but we just got it 2 weeks ago, and we're in the
So
process.
we can update that and we get the information necessary from, for the traffic engineer to, for Hubble, Roth, and Clark to review. So do you want to continue to make a list? Because this could take all night. And Jennifer, I think
Well,
you had some comments from one of your letters also.
Well, see,
Pardon?
I'm just like, so HRC's letter was written in March and they just got it 2 weeks ago. So I don't even know what they have, quite honestly. I don't know what's been shared with them by the administration. I don't know what's been.
I'm just a lowly planning commissioner.
Yeah, I'm
trying
just a
to
lawyer.
understand what I'm supposed to be doing.
So I don't know, honestly. I feel like what Sheree said earlier is this process started at the beginning of all this COVID nightmare and got lost in the fold somewhere along the way because the township shut down and didn't have planning commission meetings and didn't process things administratively for a long period of time. So I feel like because of COVID and quarantine, some of this stuff just kind of got lost in translation. And so, you know, it's a weird world we're living in right now.
So
And
why don't we take the time to get it back on track?
yeah. So I don't know that you want to do that at your planning commission meeting right now. I feel like maybe you should possibly postpone this. And I know you don't want to hear that because it's already been such a delay, but honestly, the delay is COVID. So I feel like maybe we need to sit down administratively and talk about this and go over all these issues and the misunderstandings. I mean, I'm on page 2 of all the misunderstandings that have gone on so far. And so I think it's very unfair to you and to the planning commission to try and hash out all of these things right here in real time. You know, I mean, just you saying right now, I didn't get HRC's March review letter until 2 weeks ago. I don't understand that. I don't know why that happened. I mean, you shouldn't have to answer those. You shouldn't have to respond to that. You just got it 2 weeks ago. So, but you need to, though. That's just it, right?
Oh, we understand that. And we came to this meeting knowing that and having, in the last 6 months since we submitted the last plans, we've been working with the other developer, but we didn't want to pass up another opportunity to get in front of the planning commission to talk through issues that are out there, but so we have some direction on what we can get direction on, knowing that we do still need to work through.
I just feel like we can narrow down these issues so that you're not having such an enormous discussion here at the planning commission. I think there's a lot of miscommunication going on or lack of communication going on and, a big stall in the process because of COVID. And so everyone's just kind of trying to play catch up now, right? And so, I mean, I'm new to this too. So like I said, I got 2 pages in the last 5 minutes of conversation of things that need to be addressed. I think if, we sat down with Sri and you and even Bill as the liaison between the planning commission and the board and talked about all of these things, maybe HRC as well, and figured it all out before we come back to the planning commission. Because it's just so many unknowns right now, and it's really difficult to have the planning commission. They weren't even a part of the preliminary procedures, and I don't even know what those preliminary procedures were, quite honestly. So it's just unfair to everyone here.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'll just provide some clarification on the application procedure in general. So first is the pre-application conference, which we've discussed. Following the pre-application conference is a preliminary review, and that can occur prior to the public hearing. And it sounds like there's still many issues from our review letters and that township engineers review letters that fit under that preliminary review items. And so the next step, which is where we're at tonight, is the planning commission's consideration is to be at a public hearing for all planning developments, and the action that can be that can occur at that public hearing is a postponement due to insufficient information, and that there's a list of what amount of information needs to be provided, and one is the traffic impact study. So you could make action tonight to postpone at the least based on lack of information on the traffic impact study, or we can continue to go into the rest of the review items. But you have, no actions requested of you tonight other than either, if it's not an approval or denial stage, a postponement is likely the course of action if there's not sufficient information from the applicant. Sri, we could, we issued our review letters in the spring, but I don't believe the plans were revised substantially to address our comments as well. So postponement might be appropriate.
And I agree with that. I just want to be clear. I'm not pointing out that it's anyone's fault that this is going on. Again, we just came out of COVID craziness, quarantine. The township just reopened, a month ago. So I think that we're all just kind of confused and playing catch up. And we're trying to do the best for you because we know you've been delayed, but it's a lot to take on right now without, you may not have you didn't get HRC's review letter until 2 weeks ago. I don't even know when you got Giffords Webster's review letter. Have you even seen my review letter? I mean, I don't know why that information isn't getting sent to you. I need to circle back with the township about that. And maybe it's just.
What is your review letter?
Yeah, I sent it.
Exactly.
Right. I didn't see it in the packet either, so I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
I got it in the mail.
I got it.
I got it.
So.
But is it?
So many.
I mean, based on the things we've talked about and so on, obviously, sort of the elephant in the middle of the park is this the density of the residential in the entrance to the township, the traffic implications of that, possibly tied with what might go on across the road. And I mean, it's one thing to talk about buffer zones and plantings and stuff like that, but really to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to approach this, don't we really have to decide what we need to do to really hit the major issues? And to me, it seems to me that those are the things that when we sort of sit down and say, okay, what are the next steps? Those are the things that we ought to be focusing on so that we can come to grips with, the implications of all this and decide if it's acceptable and consistent with our master plan and so on. That's just, we can talk about all the other stuff too, but the bigger issue in my mind is, the density of the amount of the residential, the amount of the commercial, and the traffic implications of all that.
And Vaughn, those items that you just mentioned are in fact in the ordinance under the items to be reviewed prior to zoning approval.
Right.
Nowhere in this packet do I see a line-by-line explanation of how each one of those criteria were met for us to review.
Yeah, I agree.
Since it is a site plan review, I also want to point out from the application, Jennifer, I totally agree. I have no problems meeting with the applicant, anytime they want, to get this underway. It's not the intent to delay, but we do have a PUD ordinance and we have to follow our own ordinance. We can't just go down the path helter-skelter and say we may not have to do this. It's very clear on the site plan review application that if the lot does not have a sign and the front stakes are established, no action will be taken. Signs there, can't find front stakes. It also says that you have to have a signed maintenance agreement in a recordable form there is no maintenance agreement. And what really sort of brings that to my attention is the fact that in the write-up, they're looking to reuse existing vegetation, but yet it's not mentioned anywhere as to how that's going to be preserved. So I agree. I think if we could sit here and go through a lot more, but it may be more concise if we can just meet, and do this again where we can just sit down and go through all of the items that are in here, including the phasing and the schedule is very important. I believe there's a statement in this packet that says the retail is contingent on the success of the residential.
Oops.
Pardon?
I lost part of what you, I probably lost about, the last couple minutes of what you were saying.
There's a statement that says that the retail development is contingent upon the success of the residential.
Uh-huh.
So that's really a big hole in my mind as to what we're doing.
Yeah.
When we see retail there, but yet we have the applicant saying it's going to depend on how successful. We need a phasing plan. We need a schedule. We need to know more information. And I'd be more than glad to meet with you. I think, we have this piece of property, but there's a lot of information that has to transpire, even in regards to what is called the Intergovernmental Agreement on Water.
Okay, so how would we go about scheduling that meeting?
I'm gonna actually reach out to the administration tomorrow with some concerns that I have about a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm gonna suggest that hopefully we can sit down next week sometime, find some time and meet and go over all these issues. And then, get back on track here. And it's just a postponement, so we don't have to renotice and republish all of that like we did for this. We can just put you on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
But hopefully we'll have this streamlined and all of these issues. I mean, it may not be perfectly how the planning commission, wants things, but at least have a more concise presentation for them so they can, digest all of this whole lot easier.
Okay, I'm amenable
In
to that.
addition to the traffic study and the community. I'm fine with it.
Okay, so I'll work on coordinating that tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think I have your contact information as well. So I'll include you in on all that.
I think what we're saying is that we're going to table this until next month.
We're gonna postpone until, yeah.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to that effect.
Just one point of clarification. And Jennifer, if we table it, does it go to next month or do we
Table it
postpone it?
to next month. I mean, you want it to go next month anyways. So either way, you table it, it has to come up next month. You can postpone it and then you can postpone it until a date certain or just postpone it indefinitely. And you can put it on the agenda for next month or not. So it's up to you. It's tomato.
If you postpone and the applicant needs more time than 1 month, then they have that rather than having to be on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we need time to review the revised submittals too.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you want to just postpone it and not say till next month, just postpone it. And if you can get it on next month's agenda, great. You can.
We still can, yeah, for sure. Okay, I'm waiting for a motion.
I would move to postpone the rezoning request for the crossing of Milford Township SP 205001.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Do we have to do the site plan separately?
Was your motion just, I didn't hear the first part of it. Was it?
It was just strictly the rezoning.
It was just the rezoning, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna postpone, then do another motion for the site plan as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and postpone that site plan because I feel like that site plan shouldn't even be with your rezoning on here right now.
I agree. So I would then make a motion to postpone the site plan review of SP 205001. Crossing Milford Township.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So keep all your stuff.
If I could
What's
get some
that?
clarification,
Sure.
is Is it my understanding from what I just heard that you want to come on, would like us to come in to get a rezoning first?
I think you're gonna need to present your concept plan with your rezoning and get approval for that. And then you're gonna need to present for a site plan, and we're gonna have to talk about that site plan, because right now it's looking to me like you're piecemealing your site plan, like you're giving the residential site plan, and then you're wanting to come back and do a site plan for the commercial. And we're gonna have to talk about whether that's possible or how that needs to look, if it is. So, you know, we're gonna talk about all this next week, but that's why we did that separate, because you may need to become, let's say we get to come back next month and talk about the PUD rezoning. You know, you might not be able to come back until, December. So we don't have November and December meetings for the Planning Commission because they fall on Thanksgiving and Christmas. So they have one meeting for November and December, and it's the first week in December. So for this year, you only have 2 meetings left. So you have your October Planning Commission meeting, and then you have that first week in December meeting. So if we don't get the PUD stuff resolved and all the consultants on board and some more streamlined answers for the Planning Commission before the October meeting, then you'll come back that first December meeting. But I'm thinking you probably won't talk about your site plan until maybe January at least.
Jennifer Anstey, just something I want to throw out there, because I know there's going to be only a certain number of people in this meeting when we all meet together. But as far as the commercial lots, we sort of structured that the same way we did. I worked on the plan that was approved in, I think, 2013 or 14. It was all commercial.
Are you talking about
And
Cojan?
in that case, yes.
Okay.
Yes. The commercial lots out front it was a similar thing where we had conceptual uses and we had a list of uses that could be allowed there.
Right.
But without having tenants, that just can't be known at the same time as everything else. So just something to think about, you know, as we prepare to meet next.
Well, I'm gonna pass that wand over to the planning consultants.
Maybe we can talk about it, but I think if you want to narrow down the list of uses and be consistent across, you know, in your market analysis and your traffic study and everywhere, that way we can like figure out the maximum impacts. And I think also, are you planning on, you know, subdividing the commercial lots, or is it going to be like a condominium, building condo development?
Condominium is the
Okay, because that all, like, if you're going to have lot lines, then we have to look at the setbacks from the new lot line. We'll call and set up a meeting to discuss after we have a chance to talk internally.
Okay.
Yeah, we're hoping to have like a meeting with, you know, maybe 10 people or so next week. And then I'm sure you're gonna have some other little, you know, sidebars with planning or HRC or whoever.
Okay. I'll be fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I hear somebody say something?
No, but if I may get one last item.
Sure.
To my team, John, Mark, and Robert, we can roundtable tomorrow morning via conference call.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for joining me this evening, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to move back up to the public hearing. I'd like to entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the zoning ordinance amendment for the fuel and service station.
Mr. Chair, may I share my screen?
We're waiting for a motion to open the public hearing.
Sure, sorry.
So moved. And as Jennifer said, we need individual public hearings for automobile service station. That's what we're doing now.
Yes, we're doing automobile service station first. That's 32,585.
Okay.
We have an opening on that. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the opposed?
Aye.
Who's opposed? I guess we didn't have one. Okay. I'd like to open it up to the public to discuss the automobile service stations. Do we have anybody online?
We do have one caller, Mr. Chair. Caller, if you'd like to speak, please press *9 on your keypad, and that will alert us that you would like to speak. Again, press *9 on your keypad. Not seeing any virtual hands raised at this time, Mr. Chair.
I guess take a motion to close public hearing on automobile service stations, 32585.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. That is closed. I'd like to entertain a motion to open the public hearing on local business districts permanent users after special approval. That's section 32.3.14C1. I have a motion.
So moved.
Anybody? Second?
Support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, the public hearing is open for 32.3.14C1. Do we have any public comments?
Again, the same announcement to the caller that's on the line. If you would like to speak, please press *9 on your keypad.
Who is it?
That caller is no longer on the line altogether. Okay, all righty. I guess we'll entertain closing the public hearing on 32.3.14C1. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearing is closed on 32.3.14C1. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing on 32.2 definitions of automotive service stations.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of opening?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is open on 32.2 definition of automotive service stations. Do we have any comments from the public?
We see no public on the line at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then I guess we will take a motion to close 32.2.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. So, all righty. Now we can move on to unfinished business. Oh, wait a while. We need to do a call for non-agenda from the public. I think we probably don't have anybody out there.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. There are no general public on the line at this time.
Okay, then we'll just sidestep that. Let's go into unfinished business. The zoning ordinance amendments for section 32.585 automobile service station. Let's walk through this one more time because I think we need to probably get this moved to the board. So if Giffords and Webster can take us through this real quickly, or where we are with that.
Sure, Mr. Chair. Let me just get. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go through all of the agenda items listed for this topic.
Okay.
This is the same information that was presented last night, so I'm just going to go through it again for everyone.
Okay.
Initially discussed at the beginning of this year, we clarified that fuel means combustible with some direction from the Planning Commission. The main update here is that a draft ordinance was discussed at your August meeting and language was updated. So the September 1st document version is the current draft ordinance language that you're considering tonight. The background on this is your terminology related to automobile service stations we found was a little outdated, emphasizing service uses related to these service stations, which isn't really how the uses are currently being established. They're more retail oriented. So that was the reason for beginning this process. And we're not changing where they're permitted or how they're permitted. It would still be a special approval in the C1 district. So these are the highlights of the current standards. Some of these we're keeping, such as the requirement for frontage and lot area and larger setbacks from institutional or park uses. And we're tweaking some of the other standards. So again, just to reiterate, we're updating the definition and the terminology and the standards related to these uses to accommodate a more retail-oriented fuel stations rather than service-oriented. So this is the text in the ordinance showing changes. The strike through are text that be deleted, and underlined in red is text that would be added. So we're replacing the term automobile service station with automobile convenience. So that's the change you see there, as well as the combustible change that you saw also. Also adding that retail sales of automobile items and convenience goods may be included. It's not a requirement, but that is going along with the retail-oriented nature of the use.
Let me slow you down just a bit.
Sure.
Has any of this changed from what we reviewed at the Planning Commission for the commissioners last month?
Yes, and that's the highlighted text I'll mention.
Yeah, let's just jump through to that.
Sure. So highlighted here is outdoor storage. We talked about not having a desire to allow outdoor storage, especially of wrecked or abandoned vehicles. So in the definition, we're adding that outdoor storage is not included within this use definition, and that'll be reflected in the standards. This was a more of a typo clarification. We didn't have enough strike through on some of the text, so that's been corrected here with the highlight in 2. Some more changes. We talked about whether or not to include lighting standards, sign standards, outdoor storage and display standards, and we decided to just have references to the current sections rather than trying to copy the standards into the ordinance, since they may change. So that's what you have here. Is 8 is a reference to the lighting requirements, and here's the outdoor storage where we're deleting that's allowed. So it's a prohibited use to have outdoor storage. Outdoor display, we're referencing the outdoor display ordinance. And lastly, for signs, we're referencing the sign ordinance. And this is the last of the changes, and there is a new change to 13. We talked about the pollution incident prevention plan as from some model language we have from Grand Blanc. I was able to speak with a civil engineer that is involved with gas stations developments, and they felt this would be a more proper term. The pollution, the PIPP plans, those are for above ground tanks for oil change places or in cases where fuel may be stored above ground. This parts 211 and 213 is the correct reference for underground storage tanks for gas stations. So that's something that's reviewed at the state level, and this is just a reference that that would need to be followed. So it could be used as a checkoff or a reference point for the township to make sure that the applicant's going through that process as well. So that's one requested change from the ordinance you have. That's not the current 13 language. Otherwise, the rest of the language is the same.
Yeah. I almost hate to say this because we just went through a public hearing. But Vaughn, in our last meeting, I don't think the overall intent was to eliminate all outside sales. Is outside sales different than outside storage?
Yes, outside display is the term for outside sales. Outdoor storage is just storage, so it's not items for sale.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And what we were referring to there, Bill, was that there was some verbiage in there that talked about couldn't store vehicles outside for more than 10 days or something like that. And we said we didn't want to do it at all. So that's what generated this.
Yeah, previously we had display group of storage, so it's cleaner to break it out, like the chair said.
Okay, thank you.
Vaughn, I think you said you had a question too, a minor question.
Nope, I found out. I checked.
You got it all taken care of. Does anybody have any comments or questions that they'd like to ask at this time?
Now, on the motion for this, can it be one motion for all 3 sections?
I would think so, but I would defer to Jennifer.
Yes, you can.
Because I think that's what we've done in the past.
Yep.
So I would move to recommend to the township board the zoning text amendments for automobile service station, the local business district, and definition of automobile service station to their next meeting.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, zoning ordinance amendment now for drive-through, drive-up, walk-up. Again, I think, let's hit the highlights here on this one here to see where we are with it.
This is our first time seeing this.
Yeah, so let's go through this. Siri?
Screen.
Sure.
Okay, so this is a follow-up from our last discussion. We looked at 4 different kind of uses: a drive up, a drive through, walk in, a walk up, and a curbside pickup parking. I know the Planning Commission asked us to look at drive through, walk in, drive up. But we also thought the curbside pickup parking is something that's becoming very popular with COVID, and then I think it's going to stay for a while. So we should set some standards to make sure people just don't come up with their own means of designating curbside pickup parking. So we added that into the mix as well. This image is just to explain, a drive-through is where you do order. So you'd have 2 windows where you have an order window and a pickup window. A drive up is just pickup only. It could be a pharmacy or it could be a restaurant where it allows to place orders beforehand on an app, but it just has a pickup window. The walk up is where you can, for ice cream shops, you can order and pick up at the same time. And there might be some places where you just pick up food. That allows some flexibility there. And one of the items we mentioned at the last meeting is that the current ordinance doesn't specify clearly what districts allow a drive-through or a drive-up. It's kind of like implied. It's not specified. So we thought this is a good opportunity to look at that and then determine what districts may allow certain uses. We can either do it like specify in each zoning district indicating this would allow a drive-through or a drive-up or a walk-up, or we can have a general statement under definitions that is implied that certain uses, these can be allowed as an accessory to certain uses by default. So that is up for discussion. We wanted to get your input, which direction you want to go, whether you want to like have a similar table in the zoning ordinance that says where a drive-through is allowed and where it's not allowed. Because we may want some districts where a restaurant is allowed, but we don't want a drive-through allowed in that location. So this is a chance to take a good look at it and see what districts we would like to have, what uses. This is just an image that shows the districts where the amendment would affect. Because some of the industrial uses, like we mentioned before, allows banks and credit unions and automated car wash facilities. So. And the 2 things we didn't address in this amendment, but we wanted to get your guidance on whether you want to look at it now or a later time, is parking standards. We did not propose to revise the parking requirements, like for a fast food without a drive-through or a fast food with a drive-through. We didn't change the minimum standards for that. We can either look at it now or we can update it when we just do an overall redo of the parking requirements. The other item, the way the ordinance is written, it doesn't allow a standalone ATM. Like you cannot have an ATM for a bank on a property where there's office but no bank, or a retail but no bank. It's just so that we can limit the proliferation. The way the ordinance is written, if somebody wants to do that, like for example, a bank is run out of the business, but they want to keep the ATM and lease the building to some other use, they can still go through ZBA and get a use variance. That's the way the ordinance is written right now.
Didn't Holden's have a ATM
Yeah.
They have a kiosk.
Yes,
outside?
yes.
Yeah.
It could be a non-conforming pre-existing use.
No, it's brand new.
I know. Okay, so because I guess that right now the ordinance didn't have any language to restrict that. While we are drafting the amendment, we put in language that restricts that.
Yeah, that was the use variance. I think that was mentioned at the last meeting. So that was a case, it sounds like.
I can pull the screen which has the amendment. Give me a moment. I have too many items open here. So the first part is where we are amending the definition section. We are eliminating the drive-in, and we are adding definitions for curbside, drive-through, drive-up, and walk-up window.
Can I ask a question on the drive-up? The drive-up window facility, it says, if I read this right, it says it has to be prepaid.
Right.
But I can understand where you can't order it at the drive-up window, but I don't know how you prepay it unless you use a credit card by phone or something. I mean, why would we say that it couldn't be, that it had to be prepaid?
So, with the changing trends, some restaurants are offering an app where you place the order on the app and you just go to the drive-up window to pick it up. That is in an attempt to reduce the number of stacking required, because if you have an order window and a pickup window, you need to provide more stacking on site. When you don't have that option, but still want to give the flexibility, some businesses offer to place the order ahead of time using an app or by phone.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the rationale for doing it, but I'm just not sure that everybody in our community is prepared to do that at this stage, that might want to use a drive-up window, but.
Right.
And I guess I don't see, what does it hurt in a drive-up situation to pay at the same window?
Right.
Transaction has got to be extremely fast.
Yeah.
Could be. Notice if you go down the requirements for drive-through and drive-up are the same with regards to stacking and the design requirements. So it's just identifying the difference in the users so that when we review the plans, we can label what it is.
Are we saying the drive-through service facility has to be prepaid?
No, not for drive-through.
Okay.
Drive-through.
The drive-up has to be prepaid. So I can't call in to order food, show up and pay for it. I have to use a credit card to do that on a prepay. And that is for a C1 local district. And the way I look at the chart though, in C1, local business, retail, you're not allowed to have drive-up. Below that it says personal service, establishments such as dry cleaners and laundries are allowed to have a drive-up.
See, one moment. Let me pull that. So in C1, the retail business, yes, like this chart is a beginning. If you feel like retail should be allowed to drive up, we can amend. This is just to get the discussion started.
And keep in mind that that second sentence of drive up is only for fast food restaurants, which we don't want to encourage like a McDonald's wouldn't operate that way anyways, but keep in mind that the prepaid clause only applies to fast food in this draft language.
Are you talking about a drive-up window or what?
Right. So yeah, I was just going back to the drive up discussion. So that second sentence is for fast food restaurants to qualify as a drive up. So we're not saying all items have to be prepaid for other uses like a dry cleaners or something like that. It's only for fast food where the item has to be prepaid for. So you're not ordering and paying for you wouldn't do that normally with a McDonald's. You wouldn't order at the window and pay at the same time you order at the speaker box. So
burgers or
yeah.
something like that.
So that's just, well, right.
And-
There may be other things that we're not thinking of, but that
and
just
that-
wanted to point that out. Sorry.
And you can do that on a phone now with still keep on hands on the steering wheel. But if you can't do it, and you sure don't want them looking for their credit card to find their credit card number. I don't see why they can't pay it at the window, but that's my personal observation, you know.
That's actually a good point. I'm just looking at the definition one more time. We can amend it to provide a clarification, like if there's a drive-up window for a pharmacy, you are allowed to pay at the window when you pick up your medication.
Yeah.
So I'll update that.
Yeah.
This is pretty specific.
I
This
do
is
it for-
pretty specific one because it says for fast food restaurants to qualify as a drive up, they shall be prepaid. But that's fast food. It doesn't talk about, like she said, prescriptions or whatever.
No, but
It's
why would a fast food restaurant have to be prepaid? Why couldn't you pay it when you got to the window?
Sure.
I mean, I don't see any difference. I mean,
Normal would be drive-through.
It's to make sure that fast food drive-throughs are classified as a drive-through, not as a drive-up. So if they try to twist the definition and say they're a drive-up window, but they have an ordering point or something like that, I see what your point is, but I'm just, thinking it through.
I mean, yeah, I just have a problem with it. I mean, Walgreens, you can pay at the window, or if you're a regular customer, you just tell them your name and they already have it on file and everything. But I would think for food that you ought to be able to pay when you drive up.
I guess if a fast food restaurant allows paying at the window, we'll just call it drive-through.
Are we trying to make this more complicated than it has to be?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, why can't we just combine these two?
Because there is a difference between a drive-through and a drive-up.
Well, okay, so I go to Walgreens, and I get some prescription medicine, and I get a candy bar. They can't sell me the candy bar?
No, they're just talking about fast food places. We're not talking about.
It doesn't say fast food. It just
Yes,
says,
it does.
The end part.
It says drive up.
for
It's
fast
for
food.
fast food restaurants to qualify as a drive up window.
All right.
Yeah, but then it says that, goes on to say a single window for fast food restaurants to qualify as a drive-up window. Everything has to be prepaid. I don't understand it, no,
I
but
think we get the concern. We can take a look at it and see if we can.
Yeah, we'll look at it more, but the distinction is to create a clear separation between what a drive-through and a drive-up is. So we're not blending the two. So a restaurant doesn't come in and say, we're a drive-up, we're a permitted use and not a
Yes.
special use or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the point of separating the two.
See if you can do a little better wording. I understand what you're trying to do, Eric. I think I get it. But it's that there's a question between fast
Yeah.
food and,
Right.
is a candy bar fast food?
Right.
well, I have a question too about, one example that does exist in our township that does want to have either a drive-through or a drive-up, and that's Holden's, where they you can order a pizza online or order chicken online or something like that, and they already even installed the window, probably in hopes that they could use it at some point. So would they be considered a fast food restaurant because you can order a meal like right at the window and then pay for it, or a coffee or something like that in the morning, but they're also kind of a general store as well. So I guess this really confuses me as to what Holden's would be able to do if, say, they don't have a speaker, but they have one window where mostly people would be just picking up food that they ordered on the phone, but they're not going to pay for it ahead of time. But I would imagine they will sell, I know they sell slices of pizza and they sell, chicken dinners, and sandwiches and things like that. So it seems like they're a fast food place, but they're also not.
It'll depend if they have an ordering point on site. That'll be the difference. If they have a speaker box ordering point behind the building,
Okay.
they're a
That
drive-through.
determines a fast food.
Well, no, sorry, I wasn't speaking to the use. I was just speaking to the drive-through versus drive-up. If they're not going to have a speaker ordering box point, then we could look at if they're a drive-up. But we
Okay.
need to look at the definition of fast food. Then I think that's
Yeah, I think that's
something
going
we'll
to be
include.
critical for saying that they should or should not be able to pay at the window, I guess, is what exactly is a fast food restaurant.
We can probably limit, like we can say you cannot order at the window, but you can pay, because when you want to order at the window and pick up, you're just holding the line.
That's right.
More time.
I agree.
Okay, so I think we can revise that saying that, it should be pre-ordered, but you can pay while you pick up.
Right. So where you pay, when you pay is not the determinant. It's whether you're ordering in advance.
The determinant. Okay,
If-
I think I'm clear on that.
We have a definition
Really,
now.
yeah.
I don't.
Go ahead, Bill.
There is a definition for walk-up. That's what we asked for last time, was a definition,
Right.
which is good. It seems to apply to all areas except for restricted office, general industrial, and light industrial. If it applies to all areas, why do we need to write an ordinance for it? Why don't we just say it's permitted?
We can. I think the draft amendment talks about different approval process for that too. So for walk-up, we kind of in the amendment, let me get to that. It said it can be administrative and people can just ride through.
Why does the township even have to get involved in it? So if they want to walk up, put one in. It's unregulated.
I think we just wanted to regulate, we're not regulating the use of walk-up, but we're saying if you're doing a walk-up, we want to make sure you have safe pedestrian access to the walk-up and, you don't have speakers or amplified sound at the walk-up. So we're not regulating the use, but we're just regulating the impacts on the surrounding areas or within the site, the safety of it.
Because I know we've talked a lot about food, but it could also be used as indicated here for small merchandise or any merchandise.
Yes.
I know that we just mentioned Holden's, but they do sell other stuff besides food.
So, or we can say or similar or something, but like in response to your question, we're not regulating the walk-up use, but we're just regulating the design.
So it's not necessary that it be administratively approved.
We can approve it administratively as long as they can show us, that there's a designated area for pedestrians and things like that. They still have to show a plan, but it can be approved by the building official.
Sounds good.
I think that's what we said here. If item C, if such use is proposed to be added for an existing business, a plan providing sufficient information to determine compliance shall be submitted for review and approval by the building official. So we're trying to keep the process quick.
Okay.
And just to go back to the fast food comments, you do not define what fast food is. You stick to using restaurant as the term. So we could just replace fast food with restaurants in that definition that we were discussing. But we'll talk about that more. But that was just the first. That may be something from, we wrote this for a different community that had a fast food definition and you do not. So
we can probably add a definition for fast food.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically fast food is places where food is prepared quickly. There's like part of it is pre-done and they use disposable utensils to eat in. So that kind of like defines a fast food. A sit-down restaurant is where you have reusable utensils and a majority of the food is prepared after you order, not frozen.
But I still have the question, even with that definition of Holden's, they with your definition, I think they fit as a fast food restaurant then.
Yeah, there could be a fast food drive up. Looks like if they don't have order window or order speaker.
That's right.
Good. That's good.
Okay, so back to the definitions. We looked at multiple ordinances, your surrounding communities, and we also, and then we picked the best of all, compiled this list. What we are saying is that it would require a special land use. That is something we were trying to get your input to. We want to suggest that a drive-through and a drive-up would require a special land use. A curbside can be administrative, a walk-up can be administrative, but if it's a drive-through or a drive-up, it could be a special land.
Could that be defined in terms of drive-up to give it some quantity evaluation? If it happens once a day, twice a day, a fast food restaurant or a drive-up that does a lot of production is different than one that does very, very little.
Yes, we can do that. That's where we go back to this chart where we have, permitted uses and a special approval. We can take a look at it and see where we want to make it a special approval and where we can make it a permitted, depending on the district and the type of use. Like a drive-through is not a special land use under C2, but it could be a special land use if under C1.
Is this current language tree or proposed?
Proposed.
Okay.
Because the current language doesn't give us any direction.
No, we don't have any current land use.
Right, but the uses are current.
Yes.
The restaurant fast food requires a special land use under C1. That is current. The 4 columns where I was listing T, U, W, and C, that's proposed.
Can I ask a question under section 32661A? I guess it says all drive-through, drive-up, walk-up uses shall be accessory to the principal permitted use, such as bank, pharmacy, dry cleaner, or restaurant use located within a building on the same property. I'm not sure exactly what that means.
That is to avoid standalone ATMs or other uses. So we are saying that if you're proposing a drive-through or a drive-up, it has to have an associated use in the building.
Okay. Shall be accessory to, okay, I got you. Understand. Thank you.
And then we had another item I want to bring to your notice is item E, which says no drive-through use shall be within 200 feet of another drive-through use. Just want to see, do you want to leave it there or? It wouldn't, I mean, just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you want to restrict a number so that we can avoid 2 drive-throughs within 200 feet along Milford Road?
What would be the purpose of that?
Just to avoid back-to-back drive-throughs on Milford Road, because if you have 2.
What if they're across the road from each other?
So that we would essentially, like, the way we would review it is we would like draw a circle, 200 feet radii around the drive-through, and then
So if they're across the road from each other, one would not be permitted.
If the road, yes.
Well, I mean, if your desire is to not go that way, though, we could just add on the same side of the road, or just take this section out if you don't feel it's appropriate. I'm thinking of the Crossings PUD site we saw. If this was a standard they were referencing with their PUD relief, this could be an issue.
Well, I mean, it's pretty hard if you had 2 pharmacies right near each other, or you had a pharmacy and you had something else next to it. Huh? A bank. Yeah, which we do have, right?
Well, those would be drive up likely. So this is only a drive through. So we have
drive-through banks.
Okay.
Under the new language,
in
though,
the village, but not in the township.
Yeah, not in the
That
township.
wouldn't apply then. We wouldn't look at other jurisdictions apply this outside of your zoning map.
I don't see a problem with the limitations on drive-throughs.
If they really
We're not trying to encourage too many drive-throughs. If we have it, it'd be on an exception basis, and we certainly wouldn't put them next door to each other because of the traffic situation generate.
That's the intent. I mean, if they really want to propose one within 200 feet, they don't have to go get a use variance
Sure.
I'm just looking at our township,
or
a
dimension.
C1 district, which we have one, where you would possibly put two drive-throughs 200 feet. What do you have? Bakers? And you
Yeah.
have Holden's.
We get the Dairy Queen.
You got the Dairy Queen, which could become a drive-through. It's
Could be a
walk-up.
drive-through.
It's a walk-up right now,
Mhm.
which is probably over 200 feet away.
And just south of Holden's is another property that's under development possibly.
Just south of Holden's, yes. 200 feet.
How that 200
Yeah.
feet is.
66 yards.
Is that 200 feet window to window, or how do you measure that?
Property line to property line.
Yeah.
Clarify that. If
I
it's
think she
property
said
line or building.
putting a circle around the window.
The drive-through, I think that's a good question. We can take a look into that. We can say it's from the window to window, or we can say from the property line to property line.
Well, that would be a big difference because the road right of way in Milford, on Milford Road, is 240.
Hmm. Or maybe we can say 200 feet from a curb cut to curb cut, because we don't want traffic backing up within that distance.
The curb cut makes more sense.
That would make more sense because if they have a large lot and
Right.
capable of stacking the cars, then it shouldn't make a difference whether they're 200 feet or not, just as long as they can contain all of their business within their site.
Right. I think
And
maybe
it's not uncommon to see multiple fast food restaurants with one common driveway. So that would be curb, you could put three of them with one curb cut, and as long as they've designed it, who cares?
yes, if traffic is the internal issue, then it's not flowing into the public road. Right. Oh, we can look at that and add the clarification.
And I think I like the idea of on the same side of the street, again, because you have something across the street from it. I don't know if that's a traffic problem.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And then we just talked about, the bypass lanes and the stacking. And we're going to include a little image that shows the difference between a drive up and a drive through. Like if you can see in this image, this is a drive through ordering. So there's a window where you order and then you come back and you pick up your food here. For drive up, you don't need that many stacking spaces.
Right.
Few. I mean, you don't need okay.
Can simplify the information in PowerPoint for the next meeting that follows a draft ordinance, and if that's a better way to discuss things. I know the memo format's kind of long.
It's just it's not like we're amending a certain section. We're just creating a whole section. So everything is everything is new language. And we also specified minimum stacking requirements depending on the type of use. If it's a drive up or fast food, is it a coffee shop, pharmacy, is it a bank, car wash?
How much was coffee shop?
14, because
Yeah, I know.
that's where everybody lines up in the morning.
Right.
And then for walk up, like we said, we're trying to keep it simple, but yet want to acknowledge the use. It's administrative. Curbside is the same. We want to acknowledge the use, and we're saying that you cannot just mark up a space on a driveway and call it curbside parking. You can only assign areas which are also fit for regular parking spaces. So we just the signage too, because with all the new curb parking popping up everywhere, people are not using proper installation methods to designate parking. So we are saying that you need to install them properly.
Curbside parking is also being done in the fire lane. It is also being done in the required parking spaces. So it's a new concept. I think it could get our arms around that, just to stress, curbside doesn't mean that you can just park in the aisle.
Right.
And wait for your food to come out, which we have those.
So that's what we kind of said in item C, where we say curbside pickup spaces shall be permitted anywhere within an off-street parking area that a standard parking space is permitted. So that says you cannot do it in fire lane because you cannot propose parking in a fire lane.
But we should also, I'm not a big proponent of parking spaces because I think we put too much asphalt down on the ground for one time of the year. But if we have the right amount of parking for that facility, and then you add curbside to it, it probably should be additional spaces to the required parking number.
We kind of leave it up to the business users too. They don't want to reduce their minimum parking for their, visiting customers than curbside. So we are expecting that if they're designating multiple spaces for curbside, they know the risk they're taking because they're making that many spaces less for other users. But we did have added a note G, which says that, if you're sharing parking with other users, you have to make sure that they're all okay when you're just taking up all this parking for curbside. Like if there's a shared parking, all users of the agreement shall approve the conversion of regular parking to designated curbside pickup parking. Now that I read out loud, I think I should just say shared parking arrangement, because not everybody will have a written agreement.
So can we just make some modifications? It's getting late here.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring it back next month.
Okay. So next month we just bring it back for another discussion, right? Not public hearing or?
Yeah, just discussion.
Just another discussion until we get the text down to where it's acceptable. Then we'll ask for a public hearing.
Sounds good. Okay.
Alrighty, so we're done with that. The discussion on the zoning ordinance for bed and breakfast, like a little time to understand where that came from. But I thought I could push it off to next month, if that's okay with everybody else.
I just have I need to know where it did come from because typically we're not allowed to work on anything unless it was a board action. So how did this come about? Who asked for us to do bed and breakfast short term? Because I don't believe it came from the board. I did miss, I think, last meeting. So did it?
So it came from me and the administration, and I'm sorry no one has explained that to you. But what happened was there was several issues with like Airbnbs and VRBOs, and you have a very archaic bed and breakfast ordinance that doesn't apply to any of those modern facilities. So they're having some enforcement problems at the township level. And so because it's a zoning ordinance section of your zoning ordinance potentially that needed to go to planning commission to be addressed. So my advice to the administration was you got to have your planning consultant, your planning commission start looking at your bed and breakfast provisions and come up with a current day ordinance to regulate these VRBOs and Airbnbs that kind of goes in conjunction with your rental ordinance. So the board just did the rental ordinance because that's a police power ordinance. But the planning commission is the appropriate body to look at those types of regulations. So that came, so when we had that conversation at the administrative level, And then I believe Don reached out to the planning consultant and kind of said, hey, we need some help with this.
To add to that, so your rental ordinance.
So we'll need to talk about that further, because all other action that comes to the planning commission, we have been told by the administration has to go through the board.
That doesn't need to happen like that, though. The planning commission can look at issues in its zoning ordinance. Let's say you get some feedback from the ZBA that says, we have a constant request for these type of variances. The planning commission can on its own, and actually is responsible for on its own, looking at your zoning ordinance to understand, why are we doing all these variances all the time?
Not arguing with you at all. I just know that we've been told not to work on anything unless it gets board approval.
Well, I can tell you that it was our office working with code enforcement and the administration on how do we handle these types of facilities and the nuisance coming from them. And our direction was to have planning commission look at this. And then the communication came from the supervisor's office to the planning consultant to go do that.
Okay.
So there was what's that?
We can discuss it further.
Good enough. Jennifer, can you give a little bit more background? What were the problems?
Well, sorry.
They've got some Airbnb and VRBOs. Eric, I don't know if you've got something going on with your microphone, but I can't even hardly hear you. I don't know if anyone else is having a hard time with that.
I can't hear him either.
Okay.
No, it's worse.
So they've got some Airbnbs and VRBOs that they're having some traffic and noise complaints about, and they don't have, like, their bed and breakfast ordinance doesn't apply to those types of facilities. It's just a really old ordinance back when there actually were bed and breakfasts. And so in regulating them, this was kind of before the rental ordinance got put into place. But still, to add some enhancements to your rental ordinance through your zoning ordinance for those types of units.
I think it is a common issue. Other communities are also looking at it. Having an ordinance written helps the code enforcement officers enforce certain rules to avoid disturbances.
It really was just an enforcement issue, and like they were getting complaints at the township about these facilities, and there's nothing in place really. There's a rental ordinance, but that doesn't help with like a day-to-day kind of nuisance kind of thing. So
we do have a permissive ordinance, and anything that's not permitted is not allowed. Is that correct?
well, no, you don't have a prohibition on Airbnbs and VRBOs, and those are residential uses. And as long as they're in a residential district, then you're, you know.
So those are permitted residential uses?
Potentially. There's
Now.
Yes, I think what Bill's right. I mean, we've always had that prohibition. If it's not expressly allowed, it's not allowed. And in the absence of an ordinance doesn't mean that it's not regulated. It's just not allowed. And that's the way it's always been. That hasn't changed. And that shouldn't change.
That's just legally inaccurate.
Well, it's everything that we've been doing right along. We've been doing this for a long time. And if it's, we did it with a lot of things. And it's a surprise to me that all of a sudden it's not allowed and that it's legally inaccurate.
Well,
that doesn't make any sense.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Eric is trying to join back in the call. Can you let him in?
Sure.
I don't want to miss the discussion.
Certainly don't want to take any more time.
So we're talking about residential uses right now, though. So I mean, it's going to depend on the type of use that you're talking about, the type of ordinance you're talking about. That, there's all kinds of what ifs that you can't just make the blanket statement that if it's not included, it's not allowed. It just depends on case by case.
I'm looking at an R1S district. Does not have a permitted use in it for bed and breakfast.
You have an ordinance that allows bed and breakfast, and as long as they're complied with, you have to allow them. But these aren't considered bed and breakfast under your ordinance. VRBOs and Airbnb are not considered bed and breakfast under your ordinance. Not the way it's written.
Then they're not permitted.
No, they're residential structures which are permitted. They're residences.
They're uses that are taking part in a residential building.
But
in a-
that's
in a
not what's
house.
regulated in there. So it's a residential structure. It's a home which is allowed in that district.
It's a single family occupancy in that district that is allowing for a rental unit. Whether it be for the day, the hour, or the evening, that's permitted, you're saying?
You don't have anything that makes the distinction that calls that a rental unit. It is a single family home.
Right,
You have
I
nothing
agree,
in place.
100%. And if it's not permitted, it's not allowed.
A single family home is allowed in your residential districts.
Yes, I agree,
Right, so they're allowed.
but Airbnb is not.
It's a residential home. It's just a single family home. Under your ordinances as they're written, because you don't define Airbnbs and VRBOs, they are single family homes. They are allowed.
Well, I think
We
we
need
could
to
we could
define
probably
them.
beat this to death some more, but the reality is, I think we're in disagreement on this, and we need to have further discussion. But I don't think we need to haul the whole planning commission into this right now.
I agree.
This is, I agree with Bill, and it's a line of logic that we've used for years and years and years, and if it's so we can discuss it tomorrow if you'd like, but it's not a planning commission issue. It's whether it's legal or not, and we need to get it hammered out.
Well, this eventually will be a planning commission issue because it's in your zoning ordinance. It's a zoning regulation, so it has to be addressed by the planning commission.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with you. Okay.
Yep.
Can we move on from that now?
Sure.
Is anybody else got any more comments?
What do you want to do with it?
I want to let it, I think we need to have a higher level discussion. I think Bill needs to work with the board and whoever else to determine whether or not we're on shaky ground or on firm ground.
Item for future consideration. I just need to know where to put it.
Future consideration.
Okay.
So I issued a legal opinion on this subject that went to the administration, which could be shared with you.
Okay.
Which
I understand.
explains why they're considered residential uses.
Okay.
Could you share it with the commission and the rest of the board?
Yeah, well, I mean, I sent it to Don and the administration, so I don't tell him where to send it from there, but I'm sure that he could.
I'll get a hold of him and ask him if he'll send it out to us.
Yep.
Alrighty. And items for future consideration. We've got the Pulte thing going in, or discussion about that. Any word on that, Tim, on how ready that is?
Well, I'm going to say we don't have a process in the township for reviewing a PUD, so we'll have to come up with a process for them and then tell them where they're at.
Okay. I think it's fair enough. Tonight's an ample demonstration of that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up one more thing because this was discussed at the board meeting and I didn't see it on your agenda and I emailed Don about it. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, just kind of a reminder. We had talked, we had a conference a couple weeks ago talking about some of your developments that are potentially coming in. And one of the things that came up is that the township needs to start looking at some sidewalk regulations. That if you have developments, I mean, you already have a development approved in the south end of the township from a consent judgment 20 years ago for 600 homes. And if they ever start, building that, and then you have these other developments potentially coming in, you need to start thinking about connectivity down in the south end and sidewalks and forecasting right now for those things. And a lot of communities I know it's like sidewalks to nowhere right now, but looking at possibly sidewalk funds or, you know, having developers work together to put in sidewalk systems or just different options of that nature. So we did have that discussion at the board level last week or whenever that was. And they did decide to move that on to the planning commission and charge the planning commission to review some potential for sidewalk regulations.
Dawn did reach out to us and we are, I was going to talk about it in the planning updates.
Oh, okay.
We're going to look at it. I think we're going to look at the overall, the vision connection to the regional trails and have some look at the regulations for sidewalks along public roads or private roads within developments and connectivity between different developments also. And the option to pay into sidewalk fund as well.
We also have a safety plan, a safety path plan in the township. It's an overlay on the master plan that shows safety paths.
Yes.
And how to coordinate within the township, primarily dealing with Kensington, going all the way over to the high school.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a good plan, no way of implementing it because it's never been adopted into any ordinance to ask developers to put in sidewalks.
That is the intent at this moment. They're trying to connect that safety plan to the ordinance so that we can require sidewalks and have a plan to, complete that connectivity. So if, I understand now that that direction came from the board, we can get started on putting some language and thoughts together, right?
That direction did come from the board.
Okay. So yeah, we'll start working on it. Hopefully try to get something in October, but we'll see based on the problem.
Pretty. Anything more on the Kensington Ridge?
So we did go through 2 rounds of review with the applicants, and I defer to Jennifer with regards to the background on the consent judgment that's associated with that one.
So there's a consent judgment in place from a long time ago, 20 years ago, that restricts some of those properties to a certain zoning classification. And so that's something that the township board needs to review. That's not something that is going to come to you. And I'm working with their legal counsel right now to potentially get some revision to that consent judgment. It's very outdated. I mean, some of it's restricted to mining in perpetuity, and that's not even, what it's going to be used for. So there does definitely need to be some changes made. So having said that, these 2 things can kind of run in tandem. The planning commission could start looking at the project, and the township board could simultaneously look at the consent judgment. You don't have to finalize anything at the planning commission level, and it can all be conditioned upon, that consent judgment being cleaned up. The consent judgment will honestly probably be modified quicker than you'll get through planning commission on this project. So I'm not worried about that. They're going to streamline the consent judgment amendment if the board's amenable to it. It's not something that we have to go through a lot of hearings on or anything. So.
Okay. That's good stuff. All right. Can we move on to the approval of the minutes from August 27th? Do I have any additions or corrections to page 1? Do I have any additions or corrections to page 2?
On page 2, under new business this is going to be similar for the veterinarian clinic, Creative Brick, and Nicola Contracting. There were several contingent items that had to be met for each one of these, which were then later developed in the last meeting with the board. But these notes don't reflect any of those. For instance, in the veterinarian clinic, what I'm seeing here is really just something that talks about a site maintenance agreement. But in addition to that, my motion was conditioned on several things, lighting. We talked about the, both parking lot lighting. We talked about the, the need, or at that time, which I thought was to not have the landscape lighting, which later came out that they did need to have the land. So these minutes do not reflect exactly what was said in regards to those issues. So it is a unanimous approval, but there were other things that were conditioned as part of that, which I don't have in front of me right now. But Wendy, if you could go back to the tape and get those items and update these notes, I think they have to be that. I actually started to think, since this is now being recorded, does the recording actually service as minutes of a meeting? No.
Sorry. No.
No, it has to still have minutes of the meeting.
Yeah.
And the title of these should be the minutes of the meeting, right? It doesn't say that anymore.
It just says virtual meeting on the top, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're minutes still. I mean, it could say virtual meeting minutes, but.
All right. So that's not an issue, but there was a lot more to the provisions than what's indicated here. That's all I got.
Can I say something?
Sure.
When I will definitely go back and replay. What I put in as the motion is what you had said was the motion. There was a lot of general discussion, and I did take really good notes, and I can put those in and I will review the tape further. But I guess I'm wondering, for the motion, isn't it supposed to be what you say?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will send it to you.
Okay.
As I take notes, as I read right off.
I know you do. I know you
read right off my motions as to the notes that were compiled by everybody during those meetings.
Right.
And I guarantee that the veterinary clinic was not just a site maintenance agreement.
Okay.
We'll bring back revised minutes for next month.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Bill, are you suggesting that you want a little more thorough minutes? Like with the discussion included in there too, kind of like we do for the board meetings?
I've always, how should I say this? I just want to make sure when I make a motion and it's contingent on certain items, that motion is, the contingencies of that motion are stated in the motion. You don't need to have the whole discussion, but just when I say I move to recommend approval of such and such based on the following conditions, those conditions should be attached to the motion. And we've done that in the past.
Yeah. These just look a little different, like the board, Wendy, like the board meeting minutes, they don't, obviously they're not like a verbatim transcript of the meeting, but there's some like discussion in there too, just so you can get a feel for what that motion actually means. But
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I did send over to Bill 3 paragraphs, and then I found out I had the wrong email address. So he never did respond to that 3 paragraphs. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else on page 2? I entertain a motion to accept the minutes as revised.
No.
That's
We'll
right.
bring back a revised copy next month for you guys to look at and see if it's.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll get down to planning consultants' remarks.
We don't have anything else to add at this time.
Okay. Planning commissioners' remarks. Anybody?
Yes, I
Quick
do have.
question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
So I wanted to ask if we could have Jennifer create like an email disclaimer that's sent out on whenever we have any discussions that happen via email, especially now that we're all virtual. Earlier this year, something was sent out and there was some discussion that went back and forth. And I kind of got my hands slapped because it was it was, I guess my wording sounded like I was approving of something when we didn't have a meeting. So what I would rather have is, as we have any information that goes out, start somewhere within the administration, and ask for some sort of discussion, that a disclaimer be put on it that just kind of carries through the email discussion, that kind of says what permitted uses of email are for the Open Meetings Act, as we have these discussions.
So I can't give you a disclaimer because you're not supposed to be doing that. You're not supposed to be emailing each other discussion about anything, whether it's two of you or one of you or the entire planning commission. You can be, information can be emailed to you in a kind of for fact finding purposes, like, oh, we're going to send you this report. It didn't make it to the packet. Or, you can email whoever and say, hey, I think I'm missing something. I didn't see this. Or are we going to talk about kind of logistical stuff? But you cannot discuss through email any of the items on your agenda, because that's considered deliberation, and that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. It's the whole Kwame Kilpatrick legacy. But you can't have closed, those are considered closed session discussions. So you're not supposed to be emailing back and forth. And I didn't hear anything that you just said about that you used to do that.
Unfortunately, it's recorded on YouTube.
No, I mean, you know what? Every community that happens. But the problem is you start out innocently and you're just going back and forth, two of you, but then someone gets added to that. And before you know it, the whole planning commission's on there and you're going back and forth, sharing thoughts and ideas. That's an enormous violation of the Open Meetings Act. So just don't even start with two people. Because you're
Right.
going to.
I mean, this particular discussion started with the administration sending a bunch of stuff out and asking for comment, essentially. So it started with the administration, essentially asking for us to do this. So
Yeah.
I guess we have to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Yeah. So I'll talk to Don about that and find out, make sure that doesn't happen anymore, as long as they're just sending you information, but they can't ask you questions and ask for your thoughts about something unless it's at a meeting. And, again, I this is a constant mantra that I say to all my communities. I mean, it just, and especially after COVID and how we're doing everything electronically and virtually, you just become more comfortable communicating like that now too. But that they have not changed that about the Open Meetings Act part. There's no emailing amongst each other and talking privately.
I guess as maybe an additional ask is, when I was brought on as a planning commissioner, I received absolutely no guidance of any kind as to what is and is not permitted. So I think as part of anything that happens within our township, as we bring on commissioners or anything like that, there should at least be, at a minimum, a one pager that says, do this or don't do this, please, because this is what's required.
Yeah. And I haven't done a training session in a long time, but we used to do those more often. And there's a lot of information available in some of our communities. Whenever they get one new member, that member goes through a little training before, you sit down with them. And we do that with some of our communities. And that's a really good idea, because most people don't know, just like what I just told you, don't email each other, that just, it kind of goes against the rest of your life, right? That's how you communicate probably in the private sector and in your real world, but this is different in the public world. So it is a good idea to have those little, how to do things kind of training.
Yeah, I know. I've been on the commission for a long time, and I know when I came on a long time ago, we did do a couple trainings and it was really helpful. So And I don't think we've done it since my first term.
And MTA also offers classes for new planning commissioners. And Dave Township is always paid to attend those sessions. Even for old planning commission members, it's good to renew what you think you know.
I recall going to one way back when.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea just to get that information back out there to know that those resources are available.
I go to one every year.
Giffords also offers training once a year for the members. If that is something you would be interested in, we can work with Jennifer and coordinate that. And I also had a follow-up question when you were talking about email addresses. Does planning commissioners use personal email, or do they have a Milford Township email they use for communication regarding
personal?
Personal. I don't email anyone.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Answer, Neil.
Out of curiosity.
I think there's actually both for some of us, but some of us never look at the township one.
And Bill changes his every month.
Every other month. Don't do that.
It's hard to hit.
That Yahoo account. You're at your own risk.
Okay, if I move on to a new comment, are you done with that one?
Yes. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Just real quick feedback request. I know last month, because of the COVID and everything being delayed so much, Bill, we kind of expedited and had a conditional approval for the veterinary care and also for Creative Brick, and that kind of required you to do an offline meeting and do prep. I think that was the right thing. Did that work out okay? Was that a mistake? How did that work out?
So at the last board meeting, the summary of that was all of those were moved on as approved. But the primary outstanding issue was that we don't have maintenance agreements. So they all had to follow up with the maintenance agreement. In terms of the parking lot lighting for the veterinarian clinic, as stated in our ordinances, it had to be 15 feet, not 20 feet, not 23 feet, but 15 feet. And so that was revised back there. And again, according to our ordinances, you can't vary from, there is no variance for the landscape or pedestrian lighting. So they had to comply to that also.
Not at the moment.
They all went through.
Okay. It took a little bit more work, obviously. Okay, thanks.
Anything else from the commissioners? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Everyone, have a good night.
All right, thank you.
I just got to clean some things up here.